You did everything the bag told you to do. You spread the seed, you watered it, and you waited. 3 weeks went by, and your lawn looks exactly like it did before you started. Same bare patches, same thin spots near the fence, maybe a few sad little sprouts hugging the edge of the driveway, and nothing anywhere else. So you do what everyone does. You blame the seed. You assume you got a bad bag, or a cheap brand, or a dud. You almost certainly didn't. The seed is the least likely reason your overseeding failed. The real reasons are a handful of mistakes that happened before, during, and after you spread it, and almost all of them are invisible. You can't see them while they're killing your lawn, which is exactly why they keep killing it season after season. So let's go through them, one by one, until you find the one that got you. Because by the end of this, you'll know which mistake left you staring at dirt, and how to make sure it never happens again. Let's start with the one nobody wants to hear, because it means the work you skipped is the work that actually mattered. Here's the thing about grass seed. It is not a magic pellet. It will not crawl down through your existing lawn to find soil. A seed needs to be physically touching dirt, with a little moisture around it, or it just sits there. And when you walk out on a Saturday morning, pour seed into a spreader, and push it across the top of a thick established lawn, here's what's really happening. Most of that seed lands on top of the grass blades, on top of the thatch, on top of the leaves you didn't quite rake up. It never reaches the ground. It hangs up in the canopy like confetti, the sun bakes it dry, and it dies up there without ever waking up. This is the single most common way overseeding fails, and it's brutal because the lawn looks done when you finish. The seed disappears into the green. You think you covered everything, but germination needs contact, and you gave it a hammock. The fix is almost stupidly simple, and it's free. After you spread, you have to get that seed down to the soil. On a thin or bare lawn, that means raking it in lightly so it falls into the dirt. On a thicker lawn, it means opening the ground first, which we'll get to, and then dragging a rake or a stiff broom across it so the seed drops through. Some people roll it, some people top dress a thin layer of compost over it. The method matters less than the principle. If the seed isn't touching soil, it was never going to grow, no matter how good it was or how much you paid for it. Yeah, that one stings because the rake was right there in the garage the whole time. But let's say you did rake it in. You did everything right on contact, and it still failed. Then, the next suspect is the one that punishes people who care too much, and that's water. Now, you already know seed needs water. Everybody knows that. The problem isn't that people forget to water. The problem is they water like they're watering a houseplant, and a houseplant and a germinating lawn live in completely different worlds. A new seed that has just cracked open and pushed out a tiny root is fragile in a way that's hard to picture. That root is microscopic and it has no reserves. If the top layer of soil dries out for even part of a single hot afternoon, that sprout can die. And once it's dead, it's dead. There's no recovery, no second try from that seed. So picture the person who waters deeply on Monday, feels good about it, and comes back Thursday. To an established lawn, that's fine. To a tray of seeds mid-germination, those 3 dry days in between were a death sentence. Half the seed sprouted, then crisped, then vanished, and they never even saw it happen. They just saw a thin result and assumed low germination. The flip side is just as deadly, and it usually hits people on any kind of slope. They blast the hose or crank the sprinkler too hard, and the water sheets across the surface and carries the seed with it. The seed pools at the bottom of the hill or rides straight into the storm drain. That's why so many failed overseeds have one weirdly thick green stripe at the low end of the yard and bare dirt up top. The seed didn't fail, it just moved. What germinating seed actually wants is to stay consistently, lightly moist at the surface. That usually means short watering sessions a couple of times a day, not one big soak, for the first couple of weeks until the grass is up and rooted. It's annoying, it ties you to the yard, but it's the difference between a lawn and a bold patch. And it's the reason a lot of people quietly fail in week 1 without ever knowing week 1 was the whole game. Okay, so you nailed contact and you nailed water. And here's where it gets frustrating, because you can do both of those perfectly and still get nothing, thanks to a barrier you can't even see from standing height. That barrier is thatch. Thatch is the spongy brown layer of dead stems and roots that builds up right at the soil line underneath the green you see. A little bit is healthy, but when it gets much thicker than about half an inch, it turns into a mat. And a mat does to your seed exactly what the grass canopy did earlier. It catches it. The seed settles into that dead spongy layer. It might even sprout. But its little root can't punch through to real soil, so it starves. Meanwhile, that same thatch layer repels water, so now your careful watering is running off instead of soaking in. One problem quietly creates a second one. The cruel part is that thatch builds up slowly over years, so the same lawn that overseeded beautifully when the house was new just won't take anymore. And the owner has no idea why. Nothing changed in their routine, everything changed underground. The fix here is to physically rip that layer open before you seed. That's dethatching with a rake or a powered machine, or core aeration, which pulls little plugs of soil out and gives seed actual holes to fall into and grow from. A lot of people who have failed at overseeding 3 years in a row will succeed on the fourth, and the only thing they changed was running an aerator first. The seed was fine all along, it just never had a door. So that's 3, and if you're keeping a mental list, notice the pattern. None of these is about the seed, and all of them are happening down at the dirt where you can't watch them. Now we get to the one that's the most invisible of all, the one I think gets more people than any single thing on this list, and it's the one almost nobody checks. This is the silent killer. Here's the scenario. Spring rolls around. You want a nice lawn this year, so you grab a bag of weed and feed, or a crabgrass preventer, and you put it down in April like the label says. Good for you. That stuff works. A few weeks later, the lawn's looking decent, you've got some thin spots, and you think, I'll just throw some seed down and fill those in. So you do. And nothing comes up. Not a blade. That's not bad luck. That's chemistry doing exactly what you paid it to do. Crabgrass preventers and most weed and feed products contain a pre-emergent herbicide. And a pre-emergent doesn't kill weeds you can see. It works by creating an invisible barrier in the top layer of soil that stops seeds from germinating. That's the whole job. The thing is, that barrier has no idea what a crabgrass seed is versus a grass seed you actually want. It stops all of it. So you spread the welcome mat for new grass, and the chemical bouncer at the door turned every seed away. And it gets worse, because this stuff doesn't wear off overnight. Depending on the product, a pre-emergent can keep working in the soil for weeks, and some of them hold on for months. So the person who put crabgrass preventer down in spring and tries to seed a few weeks later is basically planting into poison, and the bag of grass seed takes the blame for something a completely different bag did back in April. This is the one that makes people want to throw their spreader across the yard, because they followed 2 sets of correct instructions and the 2 sets cancelled each other out. Nobody told them the products were enemies. So here's the rule that saves you. Pre-emergent and grass seed do not mix. If you've put down a crabgrass preventer or a weed and feed, you generally have to wait a good chunk of the season before that ground will accept seed again, and the label will give you a window. Or, if you know you're going to seed, you skip the pre-emergent in that area entirely. Or you buy one of the specific products designed to be seeding safe, because a couple of them exist. Read the bag before you spread anything. That one sentence will save more lawns than any premium seed ever could. And quick question while we're here, because I'm genuinely curious how many of you this is. Did you put anything weed-related down earlier this year before you seeded? Hold that thought, because it might be your whole answer. Alright, we've covered the 4 that happen at the dirt and in the chemistry. The next one zooms out to the calendar, and it's the mistake of good timing gone wrong. Grass seed is picky about temperature, and most people plant by the calendar or by their motivation instead of by what the seed actually needs. The grasses that most lawns are made of in cooler regions, your fescues, your bluegrass, your ryegrass, want the soil itself to be somewhere in a comfortable range, roughly cool but not cold, to germinate well. Not the air, the soil. And those two numbers can be very different. So look at what happens in the two most popular seeding times. A ton of people seed in the heat of summer, because that's when they're outside and thinking about the lawn. But the soil is hot and dry, the seed cooks, and the survivors get scorched before they root. Then a second wave of people seed too late in fall, after the first cold snap, when the soil has already dropped below what the seed will tolerate, and that seed just sits there, dormant, waiting for a spring that's months away, getting eaten by birds and washed around all winter. Both groups did the work. Both groups planted into the wrong soil temperature. For most cool season lawns, the real sweet spot is late summer into early fall, when the soil is still warm enough to germinate fast, but the brutal heat has broken. And there's a long mild runway before winter for those roots to establish. Spring can work too, but it's a tighter window, and it runs straight into the pre-emergent problem we just talked about, and into summer heat arriving before the lawn is ready. If your grass is a warm season type instead, the timing flips, but the principle is identical. You are not planting on the day you feel like it. You're planting when the ground is in the zone. A cheap soil thermometer settles the argument for a few dollars, and yes, this is exactly where people in the comments love to fight about spring versus fall. Both can work. The soil temperature is what's actually right, not the season name. So now you've got timing. But there's a competitor sitting right there in your own yard, working against your seedlings every single day, and it's the grass you already have. This is the overcrowding mistake. When you overseed, you're asking brand new, weak little sprouts to grow up underneath tall, thick, established grass that has years of root system and is hogging all the sunlight. It's not a fair fight. The mature grass shades the soil, the seedlings get almost no light, and they give up before they ever reach the surface. People imagine they're tucking seed into a lush lawn to make it lusher. What they're actually doing is dropping seeds into a dark closet and hoping for the best. That's why the move right before overseeding is to mow the existing lawn shorter than you normally would. Sometimes noticeably shorter, to drop the canopy and let light hit the dirt. It feels wrong. You're cutting your decent grass way down to help grass that doesn't exist yet. But that light at the soil line is what gives the new seedlings a chance to come up and compete. And then there's the other half of this same mistake, which is mowing at the wrong time after you seed. The new grass comes up thin and delicate, and the person gets excited, sees a little green, and fires up the mower over it way too early. That tears the young seedlings right out of the loose soil, or the mower wheels rut and bury them. New grass generally needs to get up to a real height and root in before it can survive a cut, and rushing it undoes weeks of patience in about 10 minutes. So you go too tall before, by not cutting the old grass down, and too short too soon after. Both are mowing mistakes, and both quietly thin out the result. Which brings us to the very last suspect, and it's only now. After we've ruled out 6 other things, that we can finally talk about the seed itself, because sometimes, occasionally, it really is the bag. Not the way people think though. The seed isn't usually defective. It's usually wrong or old. Here's what I mean. Cheap bargain bin seed and a lot of generic contractor mixes are padded out. A good chunk of what's in the bag can be filler, inert matter, fast-growing annual ryegrass that looks great for one season and then dies, and in the worst cases, actual weed seed you're paying to plant in your own yard. You spread it, you get a quick flush of green that fools you, and then it thins out and you're back to square one, blaming yourself. The other version is seed that's the wrong kind for your conditions. Sun-loving seed dumped under heavy shade will sprout and then fade, because the light was never there. And then there's old seed. Grass seed has a shelf life, and a bag that sat in a hot garage for 2 summers can lose a big share of its ability to sprout. You plant the same amount you always would, but a large portion of it is simply dead on arrival, and the lawn comes in patchy. Here's the part almost nobody knows, and it's printed right on the bag. Every legitimate bag of seed has a label tag with the real numbers on it. The germination rate telling you how much of the seed will actually grow. The purity, the percent of weed seed and inert junk. Good seed will show a high germination figure and very low weed content. Cheap seed often shows numbers that quietly tell you most of the bag is a gamble. If you bother to flip it over and read it, nobody reads it. The whole answer to is this seed any good is on the package in small print before you ever spend $1. So that's the full lineup. Seed that never touched soil. Water that came too rarely or too hard. A thatch barrier you couldn't see. A pre-emergent chemical that turned the ground hostile. The wrong soil temperature. Your own existing grass shading the newcomers out. And finally, every so often, a bag that was wrong or old from the start. But before you go fix all 7, here's the part that's going to annoy some people. And I think it needs saying. Sometimes overseeding is the wrong move in the first place. If your soil is rock-hard compacted clay, if the grass type was never suited to your light, if the ground is more thatch and root than dirt, then throwing seed at it isn't a repair. It's feeding the birds with extra steps. There are lawns where the honest fix isn't another bag of seed in the spreader. It's actually opening up and rebuilding the soil first, or doing a full renovation instead of a patch job. Overseeding fills in a thin lawn fast when the foundation underneath it is sound. It's a wasted Saturday when it isn't. Knowing the difference is the thing that separates people who fix their lawn once from people who refill the same bare spots every single year. So here's what I actually want to know, and be honest with yourself. After all 7 of those, which one was you? Was it the chemical you forgot you put down in spring? Was it the watering you couldn't keep up with on those hot days? Or was it the rake still hanging clean in the garage because you spread the seed and called it finished? Drop the number in the comments. I read them, and I promise the chemical one is more common than anybody admits. And if you want the part that keeps almost all of this from happening again, the exact watering rhythm that actually keeps seed alive through those make or break first 2 weeks, I broke the whole schedule down in the video on screen right now. Go watch that one before your next bag, and the next time you overseed, you'll be the person standing on thick new grass instead of staring at dirt.